STCW requires seafarers to develop the essential competencies of leadership and management. Part of that has prompted me to develop this video discussing how leadership may be developed in mariners. Now, of course, we have the operational level of leadership, which talks about the junior officers, such as the second officer, third officer, or junior engineers. And also we have the management level of leadership, which talks about the master, the chief engineer, the chief officer, and the second engineer. So today when I talk about leadership, of course, it is more suited to the senior officers, but the junior officers may also listen to it and get some tips, because one day you guys will be senior officers, and at the same time, when you're junior officers, you will be required to manage some of the crew. All right, so let's start with an example where a failure of leadership resulted in a serious accident. So this was a tanker that was transporting a certain cargo, and at the first port of call the cargo was being unloaded, but the empty tanks were not filled with inert gas to reduce the risk of explosion as they should have been. Now once back at sea, a senior officer ordered the junior crew members to open up all the empty tanks for cleaning. The tanks still contained the cargo vapors, which mixed with oxygen was likely to cause a highly flammable mixture. The cargo flowed onto the decks and collected in pockets at various places. As the cleaning progressed, the crew members began to blow the compressed air down the cargo lines to clean them, unaware of the danger that a resultant static electrical charge could cause a spark that would ignite the vapor. The spark occurred and there were two major explosions. In the panic, there was little or no attempt at an organized evacuation. Crew members jumped off the vessel as she sank, most with life jackets and none with survival suits. Despite the rescue efforts by the Coast Guard, the only survivors were 6 crew members who had managed to climb onto a life raft. So why did it happen? So investigations showed that from the very beginning, the 3 senior officers on board had created an atmosphere of fear and intimidation, where junior crew members felt unable to question unsafe decisions made by their superiors and were actively prevented from reading safety, quality, and environmental protection management documents. The senior officer also failed to train their subordinates in the technical skills they needed to work proficiently. When the chief officer ordered an unsafe cleaning process that ultimately led to the explosion and the loss of lives, junior officers did not have the knowledge or the confidence to question him. Fire and lifeboat drills were infrequent, making the aftermath of the accident even more catastrophic. So here you can see that the senior officers discouraged questions from junior crew members and actively prevented them from learning their jobs. The tanks were not saved. Inexperienced crew members carried out highly dangerous processes. So there was a big failure of leadership on this ship. And this is an example of how poor leadership can sometimes lead to serious accidents, leading to loss of lives and loss of ships as well. If leadership has to be defined in the context of management, it may be defined as directing and influencing the activities of the others to achieve the desired outcomes. Since leading therefore involves both the leader and those being led and may take place in a variety of environments, it is not easy to decide what are the most desirable leadership qualities. Therefore, a contingency approach to leadership is often recommended. Now, what works in one scenario may not work in the other. This is especially true for seafarers who sail with different nationalities on different kind of ships. So your management style may work with one kind of a nationality, whereas it may not work with another nationality or another group of people. So forget about nationality, even between groups of people also it depends. It depends on the kind of people you're sailing with, their experience, their competence, so on and so forth. So leadership has not only to be directing the activities but also influencing, inspiring people to follow you, inspiring people to learn from you. Now remember, leadership is not only about senior officers and senior ranks, it's also about yourself as an individual. So in the case study that we saw, if the junior officers possess the right leadership qualities, they could have questioned the senior officer, they could have raised their doubts, and that is also leadership. So if you don't demonstrate leadership at a junior level, you will fail to do so even at a senior level in the correct context. Now on the ship, there are many sources of power. All right, most of these sources of power talks about the power that leaders have. Now this is of course applicable to other contexts, but we are going to talk about ships because ships is what we, and marinas are what we're concerned about. So there is a source of power called the legitimate power. That means a seafarer, based on their position, may possess that power. This is especially true for the department heads such as the master or the chief engineer. The master of course has the legitimate power based on his or her position. Then you have the expert power, which is based on the leader's knowledge or expertise. Now again here we can of course take the example of doctors and lawyers who are experts. But when we talk about ships, the ship's master is supposed to have the expertise, the ship's chief engineer is supposed to have the expertise knowledge, so they possess that power as well. In terms of reward power, again it is possessed by someone who has the power to promote or allocate favors, again possessed by senior officers on the ships. The coercive power, which is the opposite to the reward power, where you can actually not punish may not be the right word, but you can reprimand somebody for bad conduct or incompetence, then that power is also possessed by senior officers. But the power that I want you guys to focus on is called the referent power. That power has its source in prestige and admiration, and it is obtained from earned respect. So basically, why I talked about these sources of power is, of course, as you grow senior in ranks on the ships, you will have access to all this power. The important thing is not to demonstrate or show off this power, but the important thing is you should be able to inspire your crew. You should be able to lead them as an example, lead them from example, so that people follow you not because you have those powers, but because you truly inspire them. And that is the sign of a true leader on the ship. So do not get carried away by a position just because you possess a power. But if you're not expert in your job, if you don't know your job properly, then you are basically an uninspiring leader. People follow you just because they have to, but that will not lead to positive outcomes on the ship. All right, so learn your job well. That is the power that you should be aiming for. Of course, there are many styles of leadership. So we talked about a contingency approach. So when we talked about a contingency approach of leadership, that means one style of leadership may not always work, and you may need to possess different styles of leadership. Now, I'm not here to tell you what is the best style of leadership, because the situation will demand your leadership style. You will have your own leadership style as well. Your experiences, your competence, your learning, how you have learned from your senior officers will also determine a lot of your leadership style. But I'm just here to introduce to you the different styles of leadership and how you may use a combination of some of these styles of leadership depending on the situation, depending on the people that you are sailing with. So for example, autocratic leadership means that people follow what you say. It's your way or the highway. So there's only one way. Now that works very well, especially during emergencies. Emergencies is not the time for you to have meetings or to have discussion or to seek opinion. That is the time where you should be an autocratic leader. People, you should know what to do, because time becomes of essence. So emergencies is a time when you must show autocratic leadership. One person starts leading and the others basically follow. All right. Then we have the bureaucratic leadership, which is going as per the book. Now it works very well in many cases, because a ship's master or ship's senior officer or chief engineer must follow as per the company's SMS manual, the safety procedures, what is written in the book, because tomorrow if something goes wrong, you can use it as the law. You can use it to back yourself up legally. All right. And then of course, like that, you have many kinds of leadership. These days, of course, the most famous kinds of leadership that people talk about is transactional leadership and transformational leadership, that you see towards the bottom of your screen. So transactional leadership is a very traditional kind of leadership where the crew follows the leaders. Work is done in return of payment. But it is the transformational leadership which inspires teams with shared vision for the future. So now if you read about entrepreneurs, if you read books and if you read their autobiographies, you will see that a lot of them are following this model of leadership, transformational, where they are inspiring their teams and sharing their vision towards achieving bigger and greater outcomes every day. All right. So of course, there are many kinds of leadership here. You have the democratic leadership, where you are inviting members of the team towards decision making. Now this is very good during routine operations of the ship, maybe safety committees, safety meetings. That time it is fantastic. So you can see that not one style doesn't work well in all the cases, and it doesn't fail in all the cases either. So you have to choose and you have to learn about these styles of leadership and make sure you apply a combination of these during your time on the ship. Leadership is, of course, a personal quality. Everybody has their own. It is influenced by a number of factors. I cannot talk about leadership in this short video. We can only talk about it from a practical point of view for mariners. Now, leadership, hundreds and thousands of books have been written on leadership. There are so many theories, so many articles. I cannot say I'm an expert in leadership. All right, so there's otherwise we can spend days and days together about it. So people have talking about leadership. So people have these days, they have retreats, they have conferences where people go and learn about leadership. Here I am just trying to summarize it for you. the concept of leadership. So the concept of leadership, that it's of course very personal. A personal leadership style is influenced by a number of factors, as I have mentioned before. Like I said, how you have been brought up, where have you been schooled, what kind of leaders you followed, who were your senior officers, what kind of skills you picked up from them, how were you trained, your own personality. There are a number of factors that affect your leadership, but there's also an option where you can change your leadership style. So you may be a very good leader, but there is always that opportunity for you to learn more, to grow more, to expand more. And some of the qualities that you may demonstrate as a good leader is to be patient, to listen to people, to observe people, to understand their situation. You should be authentic, you should be real, you should be what you are and not try to copy or emulate somebody blindly, especially if that doesn't work. Leadership is not about showing off. Leadership is not about demonstrating how strong you are and how many stripes you wear on your epaulets. It's more about being the person that you are. Your job is to make sure that you work well with everybody towards the outcome that you are required to achieve, and that is a safe voyage where everybody is safe. Your job is not to show off your power. You can do that in the when you're alone or when you're with your family. All right. Make sure that you practice self-awareness. That means that try to learn, keep learning. Don't think that you know everything just because now you're the senior most officer on the ship. Keep learning more. See where you can improve. What are the skills that you need to improve? What works in situations, what doesn't work in situations. Try to grow, try to change, be flexible in your approach. All right, show strength, but at the same time show empathy. So when required, of course, you have to show your position, you have to put people straight, you have to get things done, but also show empathy. Be a bit passionate about your job, and be compassionate about people and the reasons that they are doing. So people may make mistakes on your ship. They may not be intentional mistakes. If they have opportunities to learn, make sure you train them. So that is the way. Remember, it's not about your title, it's not about the position you hold, it's about how you are getting the job done, how well you influence people, how well you lead, how much do you inspire people. That is it's all about. All right. Have a vision. Make sure it's not only about yourself. Think about empowering your junior officers. Talk about training, talk about their promotions as well, help them to achieve their targets. Think about what is required for them to grow in their jobs. Communicate a lot. You don't have to be an extrovert, you don't have to be a party person, but you must communicate, you must engage with your crew, you must engage with your officers. Try and engage with people. It also helps you to learn, it also helps you to grow, understand your crew, understand your officers, helps you to understand what is it they want from the job, and then you can guide them along as well. Here is a case study that I want you to go through and think about what are the good and the bad things about this master's leadership. So you can see in the case study, the master did not speak to anybody except the senior officers on board. He provided feedback about performance in written form or through the department head. He held parties on board once a month, and however he refused to participate in these social gatherings. The second officer and third officer were asked to pull up their socks and start preparing themselves for a promotion. The master introduced new technology to the chief officer, which would reduce his workload for doing the ship's paperwork, and gave him assignments that would prepare the latter for the master's role. Ship staff were rotated in such a way that everybody got an opportunity to head the trainings or drills. Now, when you look at this case study, critique the master's leadership. That means you have to see the good as well as the bad aspects of each of these points. So do not just look at it simply and give your opinion. Think about it from different angles. So a master did not speak to anybody except the senior officers on board. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? So what are the bad things? Of course, as a senior officer, he should have been engaging with everybody. But why was he not speaking to anybody? Is it a good thing as well? Well, maybe he's shy, maybe he's introvert, maybe he doesn't make friends easily. All right. He held parties on board once a month. However, he refused to participate in these social gatherings. So many of you may think that, oh, he's having parties, so he's a fun master. But many of you may also think that why he's not engaging with us? Why is he not participating in these parties? Is he antisocial? So the reason could be that the master knew that if he comes to parties, people will not be able to enjoy freely because he's the boss on the ship, right? So that might be the reason. So whenever you see something, so like second officer and third officer were asked to pull up their socks and start preparing themselves for a promotion. Now, although he meant well, sometimes it can also lead to second and third officer getting stressed about work. They may feel that maybe their job is not good enough. Maybe the master is not happy with their work. So the intention of the master should be very clearly communicated to the junior officers. So the chief officer also was given new technology, but maybe the chief officer is not comfortable with the new technology. So although the master's intention was good in this case, the chief officer may have felt stressed about the workload. So instead of making his life easier, maybe it made his life worse. So whenever you're critiquing a case study, whenever you see a case study like this, think about the aspects of the situation from different angles. This is the skill I want you to develop to become a good leader. A good leader needs to view a situation from different angles, from different points of view, to fully comprehend the situation and then take action accordingly. So use this case study, think about it, write down the good and the bad aspects of each of these points, and that will get you your thinking process started towards analyzing any situation. Then we talk about motivation. Motivation is an essential aspect of leadership. If you are the leader, you should be motivating people, you should be inspiring people, and that is where we talk about when again people say that oh, only the master or the chief engineer, only the senior officers can motivate. That's not true. Even you as a junior officer can motivate. So if you get your habits starting from a junior rank, then they only become better and more improved when you become a senior officer, right? So don't underestimate yourself just because you're a junior officer. You can always motivate somebody. Motivating somebody may also benefit you because you feel good. Firstly, there's a feel good factor about it. Secondly, for example, say you motivate somebody to learn. Say you are a junior officer, today you are a second officer, and you are motivating a crew or a cadet to learn. So when you are motivating them to learn, you offer yourselves to train the officer. When you offer yourself to train the officer, you also learn with the officer. So they may come and ask you questions which you will be able to answer or may not be able to answer, but that will also help you to learn. So motivation has many aspects to it. All right, so it's not easy to talk about motivation in just a slide or a few minutes, but motivation is important and an essential quality of a leader. And now sorry, and the important thing I want to show you here is many a times many leaders, especially on the ships, we feel that, oh, the seafarers are paid very well and that should be motivation enough. Well, that's not true, because if you see the study here, this study was conducted amongst a number of employees, and what they found that the employees, and the number one thing that they want, the thing that motivates the most, is full appreciation of their work being done, whereas the employers think that employees want good wages. So paying them a high salary should be motivation enough. Well, that's not enough. If you see that good wages comes number 5 in the list of what employees say they want. All right, so they want full appreciation of work, they want to be included on things, they want people to be sympathetic towards their personal problems and job security. These are the first 4 things that they want. Now, of course, if you do this research among seafarers, you may get different answers, but what I want you to know is here, or what I want you to take from here, is that a good wages will not always motivate people. All right, so you have to remember that just because seafarers are being paid good money doesn't mean they will be motivated. They may need something more, and you will know what they want only when you engage with your officers and crew. When you engage with them, you can find out what drives them, what motivates them, what is it that they look out for in a job, and then you can design something that helps them to achieve those outcomes. That makes you a good leader. All right, so that's why motivation becomes a very critical aspect of a leader and his quality. And there are many theories of motivation. I'll talk about the Maslow's theory, I'll talk about the content theories, and many theories are criticized. So of course I'm talking about these theories doesn't mean these theories are the best. If you read any literature on motivation, you will find that there are critics of and supporters of each of these theories. So I am not here to do that. Basically what I'm here to tell you to do is that you need to identify a person's needs, and this is what I'm telling you, that essential part of motivation is that you should try and identify the needs of your fellow crew members, your fellow officers and crew, and then work towards them. Not the same thing will not work for all of them. Everybody will not want a promotion, everybody will not want good wages, everybody will, some of them may be not happy with the food. So if you provide good food, they'll be very motivated. So you need to find that out. Now many a times I have been asked that why do I need to find out, how does this help me? So like I said before, that if you motivate people, if you engage with them, if you help them achieve their goals, and the first thing is, again, it's on a spiritual level, but of course you feel good. If you feel good, if you make somebody happy, that's the first advantage. The second advantage is, of course, you are the leader. If you are the leader, it's your job. It's your job, because today if you are doing it for somebody, I'm sure somebody did it for you. That's how you got your promotions, that's how you got engaged with your job. So that is your duty as well. The third thing is, it also helps you to grow as a leader, as an individual, because you learn about management. Your job at your rank is to learn about management. The more you learn about managing people, the better leader you become, the better captain, the better chief engineer you become. So never underestimate motivating others. Motivating others also helps you to learn, and the more you learn, the more you grow as an individual and as a leader. It helps you to do your job better. The company will be happy. Remember, in these days, people get depressed. People suffer from depression, mental health issues, suicides are occurring. Seafaring profession is one of the professions which has the highest rate of suicides. So if such an unfortunate incident happens on your ship just because there was a failure of leadership, then you will feel bad, the company feels bad as well, and that's not a good look on your company, right, now, or your record. So make sure, so engaging with people also has benefits for you. So like I said, Maslow's hierarchy of needs shows that different people have different needs. The first level is, of course, survival needs. Everybody wants basic needs first, and then they move on to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Of course, there are critics of this framework as well, but we are not here to discuss theories of motivation. What I want to tell you here is try and find out what motivates people in your ship, at what level of needs are their needs at, and then find out and try to address it. Otherwise, make a plan, guide them. You don't have to solve problems all the time. You can also guide them. You can develop a plan. You can push them in the right direction, and that will be a good job as well. Finally, the last slide for today, we talk about empowerment. So like I said, promotions and high wages and these things are not the only things that you can do to help people feel included. Empowerment works very well on the ship or any other organization where you allow junior officers, you allow juniors to take over the role of seniors, give them responsibilities, and give them the confidence that they can do it. Also helps a lot in motivation. This also helps you to train all your ship's crew in performing duties and roles which go beyond their rank and capability, because in an emergency you want everybody to be able to act, to be able to perform. So if you train everybody at the same level and they are able to perform the duties, you can also replace them. You can replace them with key persons, especially if your key persons are injured. So people, when they do the same job every day, often get bored, they get demotivated, they lose interest in their job. And this is the way you make things interesting, especially on the ship where you are in a confined environment, you are away from the shore, everybody is doing the same job based on their rank and position on the ship. Things may get boring, things may get a bit they may get a bit demotivated. So get people involved in working at different ranks. Ask the chief officer to train the second officer, train the second officer, or ask the second officer to train the third officer, so on and so forth, and get the engineers involved as well. You can send the deck crew to the engine room and the engine room crew to the deck as well. So of course I'm talking about you as a senior officer here. So this keeps things interesting, as well as it helps people to learn. The more they learn on your ship, the more competent people you have on your ship, the better it is for you during emergencies, during routine operations. It helps you grow as a master, it helps you grow as a leader. You get more famous in the company, people like you more, people want to sail with you more, and that is the essential qualities of a leader. All right, so I'll leave it here, and I'll talk more about other aspects of management in my future videos. Keep watching and keep learning. Thanks guys, I'll see you soon, and let me know what you thought about this video. Bye.